Welcome back to all our viewers, and we would also like to welcome Mr. Ankeet Bhat back after an excellent panel discussion that he had earlier this morning on changing the game using AI, MI, and IoT in insurance. Now, I'd like to give a brief introduction about Mr. Ankeet. Mr. Ankeet is a strong proponent on how technology can change lives for the better by increasing human productivity. He takes a deep interest in businesses that share the same belief. As the Chief Strategy Officer of MapmyIndia, he oversees the creation and leads multiple initiatives around maps, IoT, analytics, HD maps, and computer vision, AI ML by defining what to build, what to sell, and to execute on those plans with the technical and business teams. He has a keen interest and focus on the unit economics and on the sustainable business models. Ankeet is also an active community member of his alma mater, BITS Pilani, where he has a hand in helping and advising budding entrepreneurs and startups. Now, over to you, Mr. Ankeet, to carry on with the presentation.
Thanks, Aman, for the introduction and a very exciting day of many panels and many discussions around how today's world is completely different and a lot of the technology advancements that are going through with artificial intelligence and machine learning and how all of that will impact the entire insurance industry. Um, so I'd like to thank you guys for having me here, and um, I'll probably start off the session now and set the context. So basically, uh, are you able to see my screen?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay. So I'll try to set the context, of what this session will be about. It'll be a short and sweet session, and it's also the end of the day, so an end of the week. So I hope to leave everyone here that's logged in with some interesting and exciting thoughts that you guys can ponder over. So essentially, the the topic is around how location and location AI and these technologies are being utilized in the insurance industry. So location and maps, as we all know, is present on almost everything we use, whether we are ordering food, you're ordering a taxi, or you're just using kind of consumer services to reach a place. Um, so it's already reached so many consumers, and that power is understood. But in the business, realm of things, there is a lot more utilization of this technology that can unlock a lot of value, and that value will result in businesses growing, like becoming larger and growing their revenue, understanding where to focus, and also becoming more agile. Therefore, being more productive and also becoming more profitable. So, with that context, specifically in the insurance domain, I'd love to spend the next 10 to 15 minutes focusing on what are these use cases, what are these examples that we've seen as a company across the landscape, and hopefully, that kind of brings some interesting thoughts to everyone, and we could end the session with some Q&A. Um, so basically, just to set the background, like India, even from a penetration perspective, it's quite low. So there is a huge potential and huge impact that the industry can have on the entire country. Even as we're seeing some of the percentages increase over time, whether it's premium as a percentage of GDP or as a percentage of per capita, it's continuously increasing. So that's a healthy sign. But kind of to move and leapfrog this into the next era, we really feel the utilization of technologies that help the phygital nature of your business. So physical and digital combined to bring a phygital business together is what will drive innovation in a very fast way. So that's something that we think is extremely interesting going forward. Um, and to solve very simple questions, right, which I'll throw up right now, like what is the amount of rural urban split of the customer base? Because there are regulations around how many policies should be there. urban India and how many policies should be there in rural India, um, and which localities have kind of the or hyperlocal areas have the lower claim costs, and how do you see increase in claim settlement rates by using these technologies, and which branches specifically are performing better, and for what specific reason around that area and that customer behavior. Um, and how do you build a better digital business by having cleaner data? And one of the data sources is location and addresses, and how do you clean all that to maintain a hygienic database? Um, that's what brings us to location AI, and we believe that there are a ton of use cases that have opened up, and this is kind of one of the interesting things that I wanted to bring out from from all the use cases that we've seen that's come out in the insurance industry. So whether it's analytics right on top for measuring branch performance and expansion, and understanding what is around that catchment of the branch, and where the branch services and how far does that go and what is the territory of that. So that gives you an idea of what is the local catchment and where should you kind of select another branch, right? If you were expanding in another region altogether. Um, Also, the second one, which is digital onboarding. So how do you onboard and verify customers digitally, right? How do you know their location? How do you get their exact address, home address, and as they're using their phone or onboarding themselves using digital systems, how do you capture location through that system, right? So there's a huge utilization of location there. And as I already mentioned, having good hygienic data results in a good hygienic data business or a digital business. So location of customers, their addresses, addresses of your partners like hospitals or or other partners. So how do you have that address standardized into your data lake? So specifically from a data lake perspective, to maintain a good data lake and hygienic data lake, that's very interesting. Um, Also from a geofence marketing. So when customers are near some of your partners, how do you communicate with them and personalize your messages to them through their app, where they're able to get notifications that are personalized to where they are, right? So that's a trend that we've seen all across, and that could be extremely interesting. If someone is about to embark on a journey, how do you give them a alert that they could have their trip insured, or if they're near a hospital and they could essentially get an alert basis that if that hospital is a partner for medical. So there are multiple such interesting location-based marketing use cases we've seen, even from a customer loyalty perspective. Uh, Specifically from a motor insurance perspective, we've seen mostly around how do you incentivize good behavior, right? And when you incentivize good behavior, how do you adjust your products and your pricing basis usage? And usage could be usage that is not good, so it's risky, and therefore your premium should be higher, or usage could be good and safe, and therefore you reward it by better premiums or discounted premiums. So how do you measure that, and what is the way to measure that and kind of bring that back to your product? Um, Another very horizontal use case is field force. So as you're using your CRM systems or your field systems, how do you location enable all of that to make sure that productivity gains are being given? So whenever you're location enabling your field systems, one of the most interesting things is that you're able to directly derive productivity, and therefore be able to do much more in less time. And that only happens through location enabling that entire system, and knowing live location, automating reimbursements, allocating leads basis location. So a lot of what we already see in the consumer segment, right, as technology, as we use apps and stuff, could be the whole system could be utilized to run, whether it's claim agents or sales agents, and how do you kind of define their work on the field. And from a consumer app perspective. So as companies are launching apps to know more about their consumers and have the consumers interact through them through these apps, how do you know their location and therefore personalize their communication with you and their interaction with you? So that is extremely interesting, and we've seen many use cases from a consumer perspective too. So I'll go through some of the use cases. Like one of these, like you're seeing here on the screen, is how do you get a proper address as you're dropping a pin, and how do you use this for kind of a digital onboarding use case, right? Yeah, or if someone is entering an address on a form or on an app, then how do you automatically know which location they are at, right? And how do you kind of store that into your data lake to utilize later? Also, allocation, like if you get a lead or there's a customer, which area or which sales agent this is allocated to. And again, from a digital KYC perspective, if someone is giving their location, how do you know what address it is? So converting a location to an address, a very machine readable or formatted address, right? Also taking in addresses and then taking your legacy addresses. So you'll have so many addresses captured by millions of customers that have already bought policies from you. How do you take that and standardize it to know what is the state, city, locality, pin code, house number? Just kind of tokenize all of this and store it back into your database. Yeah, also to in consumer apps to incentivize better behavior. So if it's kind of a health scenario, then how do you measure how many steps are being taken and how much a person is running, so that you're able to blend that into your product, that information. Yeah, and also from a trip insurance perspective, how do you know the how the route looks like, and how do you kind of use this information, uh, especially in case of where there are large fleets that are being insured? How do you use this information to settle claims? And that could result in very fast claim settlement if there is if there's an accident or something, and you could actually have live information from a camera that's capturing imagery in front of the vehicle. Also from a like field productivity, I just mentioned that. So automating reimbursements, assigning tasks basis proximity of the customer or the prospective customer, and measuring whether they're checking in at customers and meeting customers. So all of that can be automated completely. Yeah, so this is kind of an example of that. So how do you kind of at the press of a button know where everyone is and allocate tasks dynamically, and then also being able to uh, kind of automate reimbursements basis how much distance is being traveled. And then comes the analytics use case, which can be used for multiple things, such as branch performance, or kind of knowing how where your distribution is the highest, and basis different key performance indicators, whether it's claims ratio or any other ratios or KPIs that are being measured. And from an expansion, like we mentioned, which are the areas that are growing the fastest, that have a lot of density of financial services, and maybe competitors also presence, and how do you make sure your presence is around those? Yeah, and also knowing what the markets look like, and where to specifically have physical presence. And to know that from a city, which are kind of the affluent areas within the city, and that area essentially would be a very ripe place to be present, and you'd find people that could easily kind of pay that premium or buy your products. And I think we spoke about geofencing. I'll get into the motor side of things. So from a motor insurance perspective, knowing kind of what is risky behavior and where there is risky behavior happening, and rewarding or changing your premiums basis that basically basis that behavior. like driving behavior analytics. And in some cases, like I mentioned, in large cases where there are multiple fleets being insured, you could also use front and back kind of camera telemetry systems to to kind of see for claim settlement if there are any large claims that come up, and that could reduce claim times and also reduce fraud. So both of them are interesting things that can be solved if you put a camera there. Also from kind of showing nearby offers around a customer. And yeah, just to kind of show everyone that we also power the COVID portal. You might have seen the presence of a nearby vaccination finder, and you can also see which slots are open on the COVID portal basis basis the map itself. So that's a little bit about the use cases we've seen. About us, we're a 25-plus-year-old mapping company and focused on location tech. We serve 5,000 plus customers, and we're present all over India. And we have the best technology and data in terms of maps and location intelligence, and we're kind of the market leaders in India on that. A few other things, we work deeply with many government bodies and also with the financial industry, and specifically even the insurance industry. And these are some of the customers that we work with right now. So yeah, when you think location AI, I think MapmyIndia. So that kind of brings me to the end of this session. And if there are any questions, thoughts, I'd love to get that from the audience. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ankeet, for this wonderful presentation. I'm sure our viewers now know more about MapmyIndia and their products and services. We actually do have a question from the audience for you, Mr. Ankeet. So the question is, what help can you offer in fraud management to financial institutions? You're not audible, Mr. Ankeet. I think you're on
Yeah,
mute.
sorry. So I think that's an interesting one, and that's kind of one of the I would say massively growing use cases. What can be done specifically? What we've seen in the payments industry, and maybe we could use similar concepts because maps and locations anyway is very horizontal. Is that when a kind of a payment is being made at, let's say, a POS terminal, so there are a lot of location components that are used to make sure that okay, this transaction has happened at the right place. So an example would be when you're making a transaction at a POS terminal, that you know the location of the POS terminal, and you also know the location of the person through the app. He's like, if he's on a banking app or something, so you compare the two, and then you know that okay, this is not like 20 kilometers away, right? So if you have anything that is too odd in terms of those two locations, then you know that okay, this is there is something wrong. So similarly, like I think in the financial industry, people have started doing that. They're seeing ATM fraud, that the ATM location, and the customer has a banking app. So before he kind of withdraws cash, if he uses the app, then you kind of poll location at that point before he's withdrawing cash, and that it's the same person, and there's not someone who's fraudulently removing cash on his behalf. Similar concept could be moved to the insurance industry, and we already saw some use cases in our panel, very interesting ones that that were brought up. That when someone is there at kind of trying to claim, at a hospital and trying to make a claim, you want to know that his location, the hospital location, is there. So they're just making sure that they're in the same vicinity and it's not someone else. So you could have such mechanisms. This is just one example. There could be many other examples of verification. So when you're trying to verify a customer, if someone has given you an address, and on the app, when there's digital KYC going on, you just check the address. You poll the location. Is the machine computer address and the address that they're given, are they same, or are they too far away? So if they're too far away, then there is something fraudulent. So you can build a lot of workflows around location, and actually location can be a very powerful thing for fraud prevention.
Thank you, Mr. Ankit. We actually have yet another question. So the question is, how does it work with the Coven app, and is there a need to install an app for it?
So this is an interesting one. I mean, with the Coven app, what we did was we packaged our SDK and that SDK basically has the mapping software in it, right? So and that map kind of shows up on the Coven.in, right? Coven.gov.in, that portal. And what we've done is we've actually made that SDK available to anyone to integrate for free. So if you have an app and you have like a couple of million users that use your app, you can for free integrate our SDK, and you can show the map, and they'll be able to search for vaccination centers, approved vaccination centers, official ones as per the government, and actual like proper, very hyper local accurate locations. So it's basically a simple software tool. It's a SDK, and anyone can integrate for free.
Okay. Thank you for your time, Mr. Ankit. I'm sure the viewers have got their answers to their questions as well. So thank you so much for coming here
Thanks a
and
lot.
giving us this wonderful presentation as well. Viewers, we will now have a short break, and then we will have our felicitation ceremony at 5:45. So
Thanks a lot, everyone.
look
Thanks,
forward.
Aman. Bye bye.
Thank you, Mr. Ankit.